Namaskar. Welcome to another edition of the Saraswati Sangam Project Scholar speaker series. Today, we are delighted to have one of our Saraswati Sangam Project Scholar present based on a topic that she has done work, research, learning on. I'm going to turn it over to a TSSP mentor, Shri Yogeshji, to present the speaker today and moderate this session.
Thank you, Aparna ji. I'm glad to present Sreeranjini to the group about talking about a topic which is very close to my heart. Uh, Sreeranjini has picked up the topic, did all the research, prepared the material, which was reviewed by me over a period of last few months, and I'm glad a young scholar like her is getting into this deep knowledge area to talk about in this particular forum. So, welcome, Sri Ranjini, and uh, let's go ahead with the presentation.
Om Gum Gurubhyo Nama. Om Gum Ganapate Nama. Om Sam Saraswati Nama. Thank you everyone for being here today. It is truly a privilege to delve into a subject that holds profound significance in the realms of science and technology, a domain where we as a civilization have achieved remarkable milestones. As we move forward, we will explore a field whose influence extends far beyond history books and into the very fabric of our culture and socio-economic development. The advancements made in this discipline have shaped industries, revolutionized knowledge systems, and established India as a beacon of scientific ingenuity. From this preview, you might have traced the topic for today's discussion. Today, we will be exploring more on metallurgy in Bharat. At the outset of this presentation, I would like to acknowledge that this presentation is largely based on the publications of Dr. N. Gopalakrishnan sir. He was a distinguished scientist and a scholar, best known for his contributions to the study of India's scientific heritage. He held multiple academic qualifications, including a D.Litt in Science in Sanskrit, making him the first Indian scientist to receive a D.Litt in this field. I dedicate this presentation to him, celebrating his unparalleled commitment to nurturing and propagating our ancient legacy in a modern context. To start with, a one sentence definition for metallurgy. Metallurgy may be defined as the extraction, purification, and application of metals. Over 7,000 years, India has had a high tradition of metallurgical skills. Our first example is the one used in the famous 1,600-year-old Delhi Iron Pillar, which at a height of 7.67 meter consists of about 6 tons of wrought iron. It was initially erected by Chandra as a standard of Vishnu at Vishnupadagiri according to a 6-line Sanskrit inscription on its surface. Vishnupadagiri has been identified with the modern Udayagiri near Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh and Chandra with the Gupta Emperor Chandragupta II Vikramaditya. In 1233, the pillar was brought to its current location in New Delhi's Qutub complex, where millions continue to come and see this dustless wonder. But why is it dustless, or more precisely, dust resistant? Numerous experts, both Indian and Western, tried to grasp the secret of the pillar's manufacture. Only recently have its rust resistant properties been fully explained by Professor R. Balasubramaniam sir. They are chiefly due to the presence of phosphorus in the iron. This element, together with iron and oxygen from the air, contributes to the formation of a thin protective passive coating on its surface, which gets reconstituted even if damaged by scratching. Second, the wood steel. Produced in South India from about 300 BCE, was carburized under controlled conditions. Exported from the Deccan all the way to Syria, it was shaped there into Damascus swords, renowned for their sharpness and toughness. But it's likely that the term Damascus derived not from Syria's capital city, but from the damask or wavy pattern characteristic of the surface of those swords. A Roman historian recorded that among the gifts which Alexander the Great received from Porus of Takshashila, there was some 2.5 tons of wood steel, which was evidently more highly priced than gold or jewels. Later, Arabs fashioned it into swords and other weapons during crusades. Europeans were overawed by the superior Damascus swords. It remained a favorable metal for weapons through the Mughal era in the armories of Rajputs and the Marathas. Wood steel is primarily iron containing high proportion of carbon. Interestingly, this term woods turns to be an English rendering of ullu, a Kannada word for steel. This applies to a high carbon alloy produced by crucible process. In the late 1600s, shipments of tens of thousands of woods in goat would leave the Coromandel coast for Persia every year. Indian iron and steel industry was intensive till 18th century and declined only when the British started selling their own products in India while imposing higher duties on Indian products only. Industrially produced iron and steel unavoidably put a final stop to most of India's traditional production. Indian metallurgists not just mastered the secrets of iron and steel, they even turned their inquisitive minds to another elusive element, zinc. The story of its extraction is a tale of ingenuity, trial, and triumph in the face of nature's own challenges. While many civilizations struggle with the extraction of zinc, a metal notorious for its volatility, ancient India emerged as a pioneer in this advanced production. Zinc, a silvery white material, is precious in combination with copper, resulting in brass of superior quality. Sometimes, part of copper ore, pure zinc could be produced only after a sophisticated downward distillation technique in which the vapor was captured and condensed in a lower container. This technique was also applied to mercury, and this is described in Rasaratna Samuchaya. Tin prior to purification resembles the metallic zinc. Zinc is like tin and it converts copper to gold colored brass. Dr. A.K. Biswas gives the explanation on the composition of different types of brass obtained from various archaeological sites of Indus Valley civilization during the Vedic period. A sheet of zinc was excavated from Akhora, a town in Athens, Greece. It was been proved that the metals were taken from Takshashila. This sheet was produced in 3rd century BCE. There are archaeological evidences of zinc production at Rajasthan's mines at Zawar from 6th or 5th century BCE. The technique must have been refined further over the centuries. India was in any case the first country to master zinc distillation, and it is estimated that between 50,000 to 1 lakh tons of zinc was smelted at Zawar from 13th to 18th century CE. Indeed, there is documentary evidence to show that English men learned the technique of downward distillation there in the 17th century and took it to England, a case of technology transfer which parallels to that of wood steel. Here is a reference from Rasaratna Samuchaya on the process of distillation of zinc. As we discussed earlier, Rasachikitsa, which is primarily focused on mercury and its various products, has a major role in Ayurveda as well as other major books on chemistry. Unlike other metals, the technological knowledge of mercury and its extraction is different from that of other metals. Knowledge of mercury definitely goes back to at least 700 BC, the period of Sushruta, because Sushruta Samhita and Charaka Samhita contain information on this metal. The process of extraction is being clearly mentioned here in Rasaratnakara. Mercury has many other uses even during golden days. Aryabhatta the first directs the use of mercury for a perfect rotation of Kola Yantra or the modern day globe. Now let's dive deep into the time period of various scriptures that we hold as a reference for this presentation, right from the Vedic period. Chandogya Upanishad, which is one of the earliest Upanishads, chronologically coming at par with the Yajurveda period, cites an example of a metal instrument. Here the word Krishnayasam refers to iron. This part also tells the philosophical approach in literature. Even though only a little is given, a lot of information should have to be gathered from it. It is particularly true in case of metallurgy. Here, the universal power is being depicted in comparison with the colors of metal ores. Vedas are the oldest sources of information which are given indirectly. And it goes without saying that unless the metallurgical and the alloy making processes were known, those metals could not have been mentioned in these ancient books. This is perhaps the best quotable stanza from ancient books on alloying of metals. This is a technique adopted even now for reducing the melting point of the metals to be alloyed. Afterwards, we have Kautilya's Arthashastra, which is a well known text for governance and administration, authored probably in the 3rd or the 4th century BCE during the Mauryan era. It has much data prevailing on chemical practices, in particular, a long section on mines and minerals, alongside discussing the various characteristics of precious stones, fermented juices, and oil extraction. The fundamental two texts of Ayurveda, both dated a few centuries CE, gives important information on various metallic surgical instruments used during that period. Not only do they turn to a side of chemicals for medical use, but also discuss the preparation of various alkalis and organic acids. In fact, the study of metals and their products come under Rasa Chikitsa under Ayurveda. However, there exist a few books dealing only with the subject of Loha Tantra also. Earliest mention of mines appear to be made by Kautilya in Arthashastra. Superintendent of mines was called Akaradhyaksha. He is responsible for supervising the ores, and therefore he must be excellent on examination and utilization of three kinds of ores. Also, he should know the quality of ores by means of color, texture, and smell. This map shows the locations where we've collected metallic samples, and the most active period of production is also mentioned here. There are a few more pillars in India which uses almost the same technology of Delhi iron pillar. For instance, the Dhar in Madhya Pradesh, huge iron beams used in Jagannath Puri in 12th century, iron beams at Konark Sun Temple which are of even larger dimensions. And now we will get into the scriptural references for various metals. We begin with iron. With an astonishing melting point of nearly 1500 degrees Celsius, was no ordinary metal. Its story starts in the ancient world between 3000 and 2000 BC in regions like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Afghanistan. These early civilizations set the stage even as they wrestled with nature's challenge. Fast forward to around 1600 BC, Cyprus stepped into the limelight, emerging as an important player in the iron narrative. Yet, despite knowing its potential, the great minds of Greeks and the communities across the Mediterranean found themselves struggling to harness iron's true power well into 1600 BC. And even until 1200 BC, production remained an elusive dream. But what makes our story truly rich is the Indian connection. Ancient India didn't merely witness these developments, it embraced them. Our sacred texts like the Yajurveda refer to iron as Shyamam, highlighting its profound significance in our cultural heritage. There is more to this tale. Iron, or Loha, was not just a material for the construction of implements and tools. It was revered for its medicinal qualities too. Imagine this. For generations, ghee was carefully stored in iron vessels, and then these vessels lent their magic to prepare Loha Asavam, a tonic which gets medicinal properties to cure anemia. The physical legacy of these innovations is equally compelling. The archaeological sites dating back to 1300 BC testify to the extensive and ingenious use of iron in ancient India. These advancements were neither accidental nor isolated, but part of a long tradition of hands-on experimentation. And this is the classification of iron given in Rasratna Samuchaya. Musha is the vessel used for purification, and the ideal material for the preparation of mushas is given here. And here we have a few slides on major furnaces and kilns which are used for the extraction of metals from its impure state. This slide particularly says about the qualifications of a pure metal. Think of boiling milk, where the cream slowly rises to the top, naturally separating from impurities. In a similar manner, ancient metallurgists applied flux to a molten material, forcing impurities upward and out, resulting in a much purer product. This simple yet effective method reflects the practical brilliance of our ancestors. This, I would say, is one of the most important slides of our entire presentation. Here we have the purity level of metallic artifacts obtained from various sites. The process of corrosion given in Rasavarna. The method of cleansing the metallic artifacts is given here. This slide is a testament for strong bond between metallurgy and the economy of a nation. We have a detailed description of alloying of metals solely for the purpose of production of coins. The composition of a particular type of coin is being picturized here. Soon they discovered that adding tin to copper produced bronze, a metal harder than copper yet easier to cast, and also more resistant to corrosion. Here we have the huge bronze statue of the Buddha made between 500 and 700 CE in Sultanganj, Bihar. Now at Birmingham Museum, weighing over 500 kilograms, it was made by the same lost wax technique that Harappans used 3 millenniums earlier. So let me share the lost wax process. The initial model was made of wax, then thickly coated with clay, and then once fired, the clay hardened into a mold, into which the molten bronze was later poured. So this is kind of the wax will be melted away or be lost, and hence it got the name the lost wax process. Now, so were thousands of statues made later in Tamil Nadu, such as the beautiful Nadaraja statues of Chola period, among other famous bronze. Of course, all kinds of bronze objects of daily use have been continued to be produced. For instance, highly polished bronze mirrors are still made in Kerala today, just as they were in Harappan times. Those were slightly oval, with their face raised and one side being highly polished. Another interesting fact that I came across was that King Ashoka had made around 85,000 statues, and among them almost 30% were made of metals. Here is a reference from Arthashastra on indirect alloying for producing brass. Alpha brass is pretty interesting. The fact that it can be brilliantly smooth while completely resistant to hammering. It is a kind of brass alloy typically composed of zinc and copper. This slide shares an insight on turning silver into the color of golden bird's feather by using mercury. And now we have gold. We started from Hiranyakarnam Manigrivam from Vedas and now standing in Arthashastra, which describes gold. Today we just had an opportunity to correlate the knowledge demonstrated in Sanskrit literature with archaeological evidences. Each element mentioned here has a different chemical and physical characteristic and need complex extraction processes to get them out of their ores. No superfluous knowledge on the ore can give such names for the metals unless they were produced. Advancements in science and technology have been a major reason for development of human civilization. Bharat has been contributing to the field of science and technology since ancient times. Even today, what we term as the traditional knowledge is actually based on scientific reasoning. We should also note that most of India's metal production was controlled by specific social groups, including the so-called tribes, and we still have such reputed ironsmiths scattered across India. Together, they contributed substantially to India's wealth, since India was for a long time a major exporter of iron and steel. Bharat has always been giving her own contributions to the progress and civilization of the world. As Swami Vivekananda says, the best work you ever did for yourselves was when you worked for others. Thank you.